All right, let's see if this is live. Yeah, sorry for anyone if I'm waiting, sitting there, staring at you, not saying anything. Our internet over here on the east side in Troy is a little bit patchy today, so trying to figure out what's going on. Okay, I think we're good. All right. So welcome to another Technical Tuesday. I will try and be more brief this week. I know the last one we did was quite the lengthy tour. I didn't realize how long I had talked until after I had finished. It was like, oh my God, we've been sitting here for half an hour. So I will be more brief today. And my topic is a little bit more technical, but hopefully still interesting. So when we had our little spate of spring weather, I know looking outside today, we're wondering where it went. But as it started getting warmer, I know I started looking at my house a little bit more, going, okay, what projects do I need to take on this year? Obviously, we had our list from last year. At the top of that list are all the ones that never got accomplished. So I figured I would share some of the processes that I go through every spring. It's kind of like I don't want to say necessarily preservationists equivalent of spring cleaning, but it's kind of one of the general tasks that at least I know I mentally do every year to kind of prepare for all of the work that we try to do. So I thought I would share some of that with you. So once we start looking, I like to make a list of all the things that need doing around the house and big things. So for example, and this may be a good, I think, example to look at for the things I'm going to talk about, is my porch needs considerable repair. I had talked about it last year, and my barn had, we'll say, critical structural failures. So that ended up getting more attention than the porch. But as we're watching all of the snow melt off and rot, all the beautiful trim work around my porch, I'm realizing it has hit critical mass. So as we make our list, we prioritize them. You can be crazy like some of us and break out your Sharpies, and you can color code them for, what's more of a priority, what things are more of a financial priority, they're an issue, they're making things worse. And that's something that I think is a good idea to keep in mind, is if you don't fix this year, how much worse is it going to get next year? Is it something that it really needs attention now? And is it affecting something else? So roof repairs are a big thing like that. They're things that can be really simple little fixes that are easy to put off a year. But if you put them off and you end up having, a major roof drain failure, or in our case, we actually have these, they seem to be built-in gutters that then got filled in with tar, and then there was another material put over top of it, and all of a sudden we have no gutters, and so the water just pours off, rotting basically everything around it, including the steps that we had to replace because they were rotten. Now the new ones are starting to rot because we never really addressed the drainage issue, which was the smart thing that we should have started with in the first place. You'd think, being a preservationist, we would know and do these things to our own buildings. And I always laugh that it's a case of the shoemaker's children, but this year's the year it's going to happen. So once you make your list, I like to get quotes for things that you've prioritized on the high side, so that we can start planning for what fits our budget this year. Decide, I'm going to put this much into my house, and what projects, whether it's one big project or is it a couple little projects that you can put together to kind of fit, okay, this is roughly what I want to spend. So I always recommend getting multiple quotes. Because while you may have your tried and true trusted contractor, which hopefully all of you have one, everyone needs a contract they like to work with, but it's really hard to find people that have time, because the really good ones are always in really high demand, and you call up your buddy Chris and say, hey, can you come do this for me? And no, they've got, the next 6 months totally booked. So getting quotes from a variety of people, checking their schedules and things like that is definitely a huge thing that I recommend. Every time you're doing a project, always recommend getting multiple quotes. The other thing that I wanted to remind everyone is that if you're in a historic district, tax credits, as you're thinking about all of your projects and what your budget is looking like, if you go over the $5,000 mark and you're a homeowner, it's for your house, tax credits. Don't think about it after you start doing the work. Now is the time to think about it. And doing a part one is easy. It's literally your information. Are you in a historic district? And your address. What historic district are you in? It's pretty simple. It takes about 5, maybe 10 minutes to fill out at most if you've never done it before. And then the second part's really the meat and potatoes of what you're doing. And so as you're planning, it might be a good idea to actually print out a copy of this and just kind of keep a running list of all of the things that you're looking to do this year, so that you can actually send that in, get everything approved. That way it's approved before you do it. So if you don't get to all of it, no big deal. Or you could always send additions later on too. So if you decide, okay, I'm going to fix my porch, so all of the trim needs to come off, we're going to redo the roof and put a new pitch on it with either gutters or a diverter and a drain. We're going to list all of that on there. And once I get started, I'm like, yep, the whole house needs painting. So I'm going to email Fran and fill out another page and say, Fran, I'm adding another one because we're going to paint the whole house. And here's what color I'm doing it. Nope, we're not going to mile side the house this year. My husband's going to be sad, but it's not happening. So keep your list of all the things that you're doing. The other thing to definitely keep in mind is if you're in a historic district, remember, Historic Resources Commission has purview over anything visible from the exterior. So if you're going to be repairing your stoop, repointing anything, repainting, I've gotten lots of emails from you guys about repainting and paint colors and whatnot. As much as I would love to help you pick out your paint colors, I have no say over what color you choose. Doesn't matter to me, but the Historic Resources Commission does need to approve it. It's a simple form that can just get filled in, sent out, sent in. There we go. And they are taking them online. So if it's something you don't need a building permit for, you can just email it right in. You can also email building permits, certificates of appropriateness, can all be emailed right now. You can also drop it off in person, but you do need to make an appointment to go in to see buildings in order to do that. So keep in mind as you're planning these things. Also, it's always a good idea to ask buildings if you need a building permit for something. I always see a lot of things come before the Historic Resources Commission, and people have already done the work and they're very frustrated because they're getting told they have to undo it because they didn't know they needed a certificate of appropriateness. Or, you get a stop work order because you're doing something else and you didn't know you needed a building permit for that, but unfortunately it did. And now you've got to pay the fine and deal with all these other issues and whatnot. So it doesn't hurt to ask beforehand. It definitely does make your projects go a lot smoother. So I cannot recommend that enough, is just reach out to buildings and, hey, do I need a building permit for this? Always a good rule of thumb. If you have a question on whether or not you're in a historic district, we're happy to answer that. Email is the best way to reach me. So shoot me an email. I can definitely tell you whether or not your house is in a historic district. The city can too. Either Aaron Glennon or buildings, they can answer that as well. Let me see what else. We've got our permitting issues. Oh, one thing that I highly recommend taking a look at, just to brush up on it if you haven't seen it, if you don't live in a historic district, when the new USDO was put into place, so it's kind of a form-based code when they did the whole rezone, it took the was a traditional overlay district, which was kind of an overlay area that encompassed most of the city, and gave it some basic rules on, porches, not removing your vinyl siding over, if you have really detailed shingle work, things like that. It was kind of just a general rule of thumb, things to help preserve some of the historic fabric outside historic districts. All of those regulations got wrapped into the new ordinance. So if you aren't in a historic district and you're doing work on your porch, whether you're trying to enclose it, hopefully not, whether you're reopening it, that's the one we're looking at, or maybe you're taking all of your siding off your house and re-exposing those beautiful scalloped shingles that are on the front of your building or whatnot, or taking all the wrapping off your columns, see a lot of that in Pine Hills. Always check first. So it doesn't hurt to look at the USDO to make sure the things that you're doing, you don't need an additional building permit for. They don't go before the Historic Resources Commission, but if something is spelled out in the USDO that you do need attention to, I'd highly recommend, you may end up needing a variance or something through the BZA. So I would definitely recommend looking at that. I'm going to post on our blog page and I'll put a link to it in the comment section. I haven't been using it a lot lately because we've been doing a little bit more show and tell and tours and things. But I'm going to post all of the links for all of this, all of the ordinances, where all the forms are, all those handy things, tax credit application. Pardon pardon me, I'll post all the links for that so you guys can get that. But that's a little bit, hopefully, like I said, we're doing quick today. So those are some of the things to think about as you're planning. And please, as always, ask questions. Questions are always good. We're always happy to answer whatever questions we can. Whether it's, do you guys know a contractor, or should I be doing this with my roof, or whatever, we're always happy to answer them. And I'm thrilled to tell you guys too that our restoration fair that we did online last year, we are planning it again. So it's going to be summer long, and we'll be addressing a good bit more of this. And lots more. We've got a whole summer of programming planned. So there'll be lots more helpful bits to come. So thank you all for joining me, and happy planning. Go out, get a little bit of sunshine once it gets warmer. It looks ridiculously cold, but hopefully spring is almost here. So thank you again, and have a wonderful day.